votes were ever shown to the election agents before terming them invalid. And lastly, when the election concluded, we went to the presiding officer to check the vote. He ran away. He literally ran away with the entire ballot paper of 36 people and rushed out of the venue.
You know, Raghav, on that point, the newly elected BJP mayor has said that it was the AAP and Congress workers who actually tore up these ballot papers and created all of that ruckus.
Well, quite frankly, everything is caught on camera because the Honorable High Court directed a videography of the entire event. You can see this completely and it will be absolutely clear to you what the BJP has done. In fact, the presiding officer himself, Akshita, is caught in the video putting an additional mark of ink on the Aam Aadmi Party's and the Congress's votes. He himself is caught on camera putting an ink on the ballot paper so that the ballot paper later on can be declared invalid. And why was the ballot paper not shown to these election agents? Why did he run away with it after the election? So all these point towards only one thing, that the BJP felt and knew that they're going to lose this election. In order to prevent a defeat, they have rigged the whole process. They have committed the highest form of illegality and unconstitutionality, and it is an attack on India's democracy. I term it, and I have no hesitation in saying this, this is an act of treason. This is Deshdroh, what BJP has done.
So in light of what's happened and these 8 votes, Raghav, that have been declared invalid, do you think that if that didn't happen, the result would be very, very different in the mayoral election?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine out of 36, 20 votes are with the India Alliance. Out of those 20, that is the majority is with the India Alliance. Out of those 28 votes are declared invalid. If those votes were not declared invalid, as they have wrongfully and illegally been declared invalid, they would have fallen in the India Alliance vote kitty. That means we would have had 20 votes out of 36, which means that we have the majority. The majority figure was 18, 19. We had 20 votes. We had one more than the majority mark. So therefore, it's very clear that it has been strategically done to ensure that Aam Aadmi Party and Congress doesn't win. Please spare a thought. Forget this small election of Chandigarh for 1 minute. Spare a thought that if the BJP can go to this level, stoop to this low level to rig an election process in an inconsequential, insignificant Chandigarh mayor election, imagine how much they can rig the election machinery for the Lok Sabha 2024 elections. My appeal to all your viewers is, in the upcoming Lok Sabha elections, don't vote to make a candidate win or to defeat a candidate. Vote to save India's democracy. Because if BJP wins the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, it would perhaps be the last election and India will become a China or a Russia or a North Korea-like democracy.
That's a comment Mr. Kharge also has made. But obviously the election process itself, Raghav, is very different. Here, it was, as you pointed out, a mayoral election that you're comparing to a general election, ballot paper versus EVM. So, can you really talk about rigging on a larger scale in the general election, as you're saying?
Well, of course, but in ballots, at least what illegality is being done can be caught easily because he has to manually do it. I shudder to think what kind of gerrymandering can be done with the integrity of the the whole election process, which is conducted by VVPATs and EVMs. So I think it is a dangerous sign for India's democracy what's happening. And if the BJP can stoop to this level for a mayor election, I shudder to think what all riggings and illegalities these people are going to commit in the upcoming Lok Sabha 2024.
No, so now, what's the next step, Raghav? You've moved the courts and what's your demand now? I know that you've said that there should be action against the presiding officer, but are you now demanding a fresh election?
Look, we have of course moved the court and the matter is likely to come up tomorrow. We have the following demands. First of all, today's illegal and unconstitutional election needs to be set aside. Number 2, a fresh election needs to be conducted, which should be free and fair. Number 3, instead of this presiding officer who was nominated by the BJP and who is BJP's own office bearer needs to be removed, and a retired judge chosen by the Honorable High Court needs to be deputed as the presiding officer to oversee the election. And number 4, Mr. Anil Masih, who was today's presiding officer, needs to be booked and perhaps even arrested for charges of forgery, illegality, unconstitutionality, and for committing an act of treason.
My final question to you, Raghav, is keeping aside all of these allegations of rigging and conspiracy that you've leveled, if you look at the result itself, it's bad news for the India Bloc. You know, you made comments saying that this is essentially the first step where the India Alliance is coming together. We're going to see the result of that. This is laying the foundation stone for the upcoming general elections. And you've lost. The AAP-Congress reality is right now has lost this election.
So this does two things. First, this India Alliance, which was the first match that AAP and Congress played as one unit, as alliance partners under the banner of India Alliance, has brought these two parties together. I think there was great working relationship that all of us enjoyed, and I personally enjoyed with Mr. Pawan Bansal in Chandigarh. So that's a positive. The negative is that this election is not a setback for the alliance or for AAP or for Congress. I think this election is a setback for India's democracy. I think this is the larger message, that if the largest party, the ruling party of this country that controls all resources, that has unlimited amount of power and unmeasurable amount of money, can stoop to these levels to rig a small election because they don't want to suffer a defeat at the hands of India Alliance, imagine what all wrongdoings these guys can commit. I think it is a setback for democracy, not just for any alliance or any political organization.
All right, Raghav Chadha, thank you very much for joining us here on India Today. Like we mentioned, you've moved the court, so we'll see what plays out tomorrow, whether you get any sort of legal relief. But thank you very much for joining us here on India Today. So that particular story is now snowballing into a political controversy. But the biggest political headline of the day has no doubt been what's been playing out in the ED offices. And several opposition leaders essentially are being questioned at the same time, being summoned at the same time. The big headline, of course, is to do with the Jharkhand Chief Minister Hemant Soren, illegal land mining. He's been summoned several times. Tomorrow, he said he will appear. Remains to be seen if that will happen. But it's not just Hemant Soren. Several other leaders. Today, Tejasvi Yadav has also been summoned by the Enforcement Directorate. He's being questioned as we speak. Lalu was questioned yesterday. Both of them in the dock for the land for job scam. Arvind Kejriwal in the national capital, again, in the liquor policy scam. And I can go on with this list. Names will keep coming up on your screens of all of the opposition leaders who currently are facing heat from central agencies, from the ED and the CBI. But let's talk about what's happened with Hemant Soren and how there was reports of him going missing. For 40 hours, nobody knew where he was. Till finally here on India Today, we got footage of him actually appearing in Ranchi when everyone thought he was in Delhi. He says he will appear before the Enforcement Directorate tomorrow, but amid that there are questions about whether he's setting the stage to ensure that if he's arrested, it's his wife who takes over as the Chief Minister.
Went missing for 41 hours. Jharkhand's Chief Minister made a dramatic appearance at his Ranchi home on Tuesday. Hemant Soren at the center of ED investigations. As his whereabouts remained unknown, the Enforcement Directorate seized 2 BMWs, 36 lakh in cash and documents during searches at Soren's official residence in New Delhi late Monday. The ED investigating at least 3 cases of money laundering. Investigators suspect his involvement in illegal mining and land deals.
The sources are saying at this point of time they have gathered huge amount of evidence against Hemant Soren in all 3 money laundering cases. The illegal mining case, the coal scam case and the land scam case. But before making the arrest, ED sources claim that they want to give one more chance to Hemant Soren so that he can defend himself, and later on, after the questioning, they will decide whether to call Hemant Soren once again for questioning or whether he should be placed under arrest.
After his arrival in Ranchi, purportedly from Delhi, the Jharkhand CM met MLAs of the ruling alliance of JMM, Congress and the RJD. He also met his cabinet ministers. His wife Kalpana Soren, speculated to take over the chief minister's post, was also present. Security, meanwhile, tightened around the CM residence, the Raj Bhavan and the ED office in Ranchi. According to insiders, Every legislator of the ruling alliance has been asked to stay put in the national capital amid the current situation. His party alleged political witch hunt.
क्या उसका नियम था जो ईडी किया उस तरह जाने का है नियम? बताइए। आप लोग वो चीज तो बोलते नहीं हैं। जब तक 21 तारीख 29 से 31 का डेट दिया हुआ था तो कैसे चल गया वो चीज तो आप लोग बोलिएगा नहीं।
But Soren's opponents escalated their attack on the chief minister, citing his disappearance as the ED looked for him as part of investigations.
छुप के थोड़े जाएगा कोई मुख्यमंत्री भाई। अब मुख्यमंत्री छुप के जा रहा है, छुप के भाग रहा है, छुपे फिर रहा है, ये तो आश्चर्य है।
The ED believes it has a watertight case against the Jharkhand chief minister.
In all likelihood, when Hemant Soren faces the ED tomorrow, he will be asked about his alleged involvement in illegal land holdings. That is the land mafia case the ED is investigating, and alleged mismanagement of funds linked to the bank accounts that are linked to that of his wife. These are the possible questions that the ED will be posing him with, and it will be interesting to see that what is the ammunition that Hemant Soren has prepared this time. With video journalist Shailendra, this is Shreya Chatterjee for India Today.
All right, let's bring in Shreya Chatterjee, who's joining us live from Ranchi with the latest updates on this. Shreya, good evening. A lot of questions that have been asked about where Hemant Soren really was for 40 hours plus that, everyone was questioning, and the ED claimed he was missing. Nobody knew where he was. But at the same time, there will also be a question of why the Enforcement Directorate was looking for him when he's promised he's going to appear before the agency tomorrow. Is he going to keep up that promise? Is he going to appear before the agency tomorrow?
In all likelihood, he should, Akshita, because he's actually written in an email response to the ED that he will be appearing before him at this same residence where I'm standing right now tomorrow at 1 p.m. Now, on the question on why did the ED turn up at Hemant Soren's residence, remember, ED on Saturday had sent the 9th summons suggesting that please give us a response that whether you will be appearing before us on the 29th or the 31st. However, a response did not go to the ED till the time of 29th morning when ED went ahead with their action. Now, ED's action was not just based on the summons that they have given. They also received certain fresh inputs which they wanted to go ahead with, search the residences and also apprise the CM about. That's precisely why the ED is going ahead and saying they have seized his BMW car, got some incriminating documents and 36 lakh of rupees. Now, what is the counter that the JMM is giving to this? They are saying that the CM had very well responded. Why is the ED creating a confusion? To the answer that why did the CM not return to Ranchi via flight, the General Secretary of JMM in a press conference suggested that in the Constitution, nowhere is it written that if I go to a place via flight, I have to take it back the same manner. So these are counter questions and questions that are being posed from the ED and the JMM side. We can say that today's day was that to JMM, but tomorrow is the day he will be facing the ED. It will be interesting to see how they take it from then onwards.
And this issue has quickly turned political as well, with many saying that Hemant Soren has essentially set the stage for his wife to take over as the Chief Minister if he's arrested by the Enforcement Directorate. We'll see what plays out tomorrow. Thanks very much, Shreya, for joining us with all of those details. Not just Hemant Soren, as I told you earlier, Tejaswi Yadav, as we speak, is still being questioned by the Enforcement Directorate in the Land for Jobs case. The same scam in which his father, Lalu Prasad, was questioned yesterday by the Enforcement Directorate. Let's round up for you the allegations and also the questionnaire that we've accessed here on India Today of exactly what the ED is asking Tejaswi right now. Trouble for Lalu family mounts. A day after RJD chief Lalu Prasad was grilled for nearly 10 hours, the Enforcement Directorate on Tuesday questioned his son and former Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar, Tejaswi Yadav, in the Land for Jobs scam. The RJD is calling the ED probe political witch hunt by the BJP.
विपक्ष को तो ये मान लेना चाहिए कि उनको चुनाव भी लड़ना है और इन एजेंसी से भी संघर्ष करना है, लेकिन नतीजे अगर उलट आए ना तो जो लोग आज ईडी, आईटी, सीबीआई से ये करवा रहे हैं सबके सब जद में आएंगे।
Lalu's party also slammed Chief Minister Nitish Kumar for changing his stand on the issue.
माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी से आग्रह होगा कि आपने तो कहा था कि इसकी गलती नहीं है, इसको तो वो लोग फंसा दिया, तो जब वो लोग फंसा दिया तो सर आपसे आग्रह होगा कि कुछ बोलिए आज।
There's more trouble ahead for the Yadavs. Lalu's wife Rabdi Devi and their two daughters Hema Yadav and Misa Bharti have been asked to appear before a Delhi court on February 9th. The Congress has rallied behind their ally.
जब जब सत्ता का परिवर्तन उन्हें करना होता है तब तब वो ईडी का, सीबीआई का, सीडी का बेजा इस्तेमाल करते हैं। वो कोई नई बात नहीं है। लालू जी को सिर्फ इसलिए परेशान किया जा रहा है, उनके परिवार को इसलिए परेशान किया जा रहा है कि बीजेपी की वॉशिंग मशीन में धुलने के लिए तैयार नहीं।
The BJP's hailed ED action as a crackdown on corruption.
नौकरी के बदले जमीन लेने के ऐसे काम, गरीबों का शोषण इन्होंने किया है। गरीबों के नेता बनने के नाम पर किसी से जमीन लिया, किसी से रिश्वत ली, किसी से कैसे कैसे लोगों ने तो जांच का सामना कर रहे हैं। ईडी एक स्वतंत्र एजेंसी है, उसका जवाब दे, कानून अपना काम करेगा। मोदी जी के जमाने में भ्रष्टाचार पर जीरो टॉलरेंस।
Corruption investigations against opposition leaders are gathering pace in election year. The question now is whether any of them will be arrested in the run-up to the general elections. Bureau Report, India Today. And let me bring in on this broadcast Aditya Weber, who's joining us live from Patna. Aditya, immediately after the developments that have happened in your state of Nitish Kumar going back to the NDA, we've been seeing all of this agency heat on the RJD. Lalu Prasad yesterday, Tejaswi today. Many of the family members are also facing the Enforcement Directorate heat in the Land for Jobs scam right now. Politically, does this have an impact for the RJD?
Well, exactly, Akshita. As far as Bihar scenario is concerned, of course, first it was Bihar political turmoil that actually saw the government being toppled and a new government being formed under the same chief minister. But then, immediately after that, back-to-back questioning of Lalu Yadav first and now Tejaswi Yadav is something that has triggered a political storm as far as Bihar is concerned. I can show you clear visuals outside the ED office and you can clearly see that a sea of supporters, RJD supporters, throng the entire locality, and this has also put to a grinding halt the traffic on this flank of road. But then we've been given to understand that the questioning of Tejaswi Prasad Yadav continues for more than 7 hours in a row, and we've been given to understand that several questions pertaining to the acquisition of said properties is being asked by the Enforcement Directorate officials. Notable is the fact that the RJD supporters out here are expressing solidarity with their leader Tejaswi Yadav while they criticize the BJP for orchestrating the entire scenario. Akshita.
All right. Thanks very much, Aditya, for those details. You can see that there have been protests that have broken out through the day. Solidarity protests being held by RJD leaders right now in Patna and here in Delhi. Let me also tell you about the other opposition leader who's facing heat. This is Sanjay Rao, the MP, of course, from the Uddhav Sena. His brother has been questioned by the Enforcement Directorate over allegations of being involved in a COVID scam. Now, in Maharashtra, this did in fact rock the state for the last many years. And now the Enforcement Directorate, which had started off its formal investigation, had summoned Sanjay Rao's brother, and he has in fact been questioned. Now, remember that Sanjay Rao, through all of these allegations, has claimed that it's completely untrue. He's called it politically motivated. Let's get you some of the reactions that have come in on the story.
संदीप जी, ये बताइए कि कुछ ऐसे आरोप लगाए गए थे कि जो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स इन्वॉल्व थे खिचड़ी वितरण के मामले में, उन्होंने आपके अकाउंट में पैसे ट्रांसफर किए।
नहीं भाई, मैंने तो पैसे ट्रांसफर करने उन्हें नहीं कहा था। उन्होंने मेरा किचन जो लिया था, किचन जो यूज़ किया था, किचन में मेरा मटेरियल स्टॉक था, मेरा पानी का बिल, मेरा लाइट का बिल, मेरा मटेरियल, मेरा ट्रांसपोर्ट, मेरा लेबर सब उन्होंने यूज़ किया था। उसका पैसा उन्होंने दिया, मैं ले नहीं रहा था, वो ट्रांसफ़र किया और मैंने लोगों को दे दिया।
सर, बीजेपी के नेता किरीट सोमैया का ये आरोप था कि आपको एक कमीशन के तौर पे ये पैसा आपको ट्रांसफर किया गया है?
सर कमीशन कैसा है? कमीशन उन्होंने लिया है विक्रांत का, 38 करोड़ का 40 करोड़ का कमीशन उन्होंने लिया है। वो कहाँ गया? वो छुपा दिया, उसको भी बाहर निकलो भाई जरा।
सर ये जानना चाहेंगे, आज संजय राउत जी भी आपको यहाँ पर छोड़ने आए थे, क्या कहना था उनका? ईडी ने उनकी भी इंक्वायरी की थी, उन्हें भी अरेस्ट किया था एक केस में।
यही कहा अगर हमने गलती नहीं की है तो किसी को डरने की बात नहीं है। मैं भी डरा नहीं हूँ, मैं 3.5 महीना अंदर जाके आऊँ और मेरा आदर्श रखो।
सर कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स का ये आरोप था कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स पर कि उन्होंने 300 ग्राम खिचड़ी के बदले 100 ग्राम खिचड़ी बेची।
ये मुझे पता नहीं, मैंने जो है उन्होंने पैकिंग किया वो ही लेके गए।
400 पार है तो ये नीतीश कुमार को तोड़ो, शिवसेना को तोड़ो, एनसीपी को तोड़ो, हेमंत सोरेन के ऊपर रेड करो, केजरीवाल जी के ऊपर रेड करो। हाँ, ये नौटंकी क्यों चल रही है? आप डर गए हो 400 पार के, आपको 200 नहीं, आप 200 पार नहीं करने जा रहे हो। 400 पार की बात छोड़ दो, आपको 200 पार करने की आपकी औकात नहीं है, इसलिए आप ये सब करके आपका जुगाड़ जो है बहुमत का आप करना चाहते हो, लेकिन नहीं होगा। आप हारने जा रहे हो, आपको राम भी नहीं बचा रहा है।
Let me bring in Divyesh now on this broadcast. He's joining us live from Mumbai. Divyesh, good evening. Run us through the allegations essentially against Sanjay Raut's brother and what's emerged from the grilling. Is it still underway?
Well, it is still underway. Akshita, Sandeep Raut, Sanjay Raut's brother, arrived at around 12 noon at the Enforcement Directorate office, and it is being alleged that Sandeep Raut had received funds from those contractors who had secured contracts for distribution of khichdi, distribution of food packets during the COVID lockdown period. There was a scheme launched by the Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation to distribute food packets to daily wage laborers, migrants and several others who were not getting any food supplied during the lockdown. These packets were of 300 grams each, but the contractors were only distributing 100 grams of khichdi per packet, and they had submitted inflated bills for the same to BMC. That is the FIR that was registered by the Mumbai police, after which ED started investigation. And when ED started investigation, it came to light that Sandeep Raut, brother of Sanjay Raut, had received some funds directly into his bank account from the contractors who had received contracts for distribution of
So those are the allegations that Divyesh is running us through. Investigation and the questioning by Enforcement Directorate still underway. Thanks very much, Divyesh, for getting us those details. Tragic news that's coming in right now from Chhattisgarh's Sukhma, where we've lost 3 soldiers. They've been killed in action. This is in a naxal encounter that broke out. 14 soldiers have also been injured in this encounter. Now, the condition of the injured soldiers, we're being told, is not critical, but they have been rushed right now to Raipur for further treatment. We've lost 3 of our soldiers in this attack. We understand that soon after, an encounter also broke out with Maoists. Sukhma, of course, sees, unfortunately, this kind of surge of Naxal activity every few months. And in the course of eliminating this threat to residents, you see our forces are also bravely putting up a fight and very often being trapped in Naxal firing. All right, this has happened in Sukhma, and all of the soldiers right now, 14 of whom have been injured in this attack, have right now been rushed also to the hospital in Raipur. They've been moved out of Sukhma urgently. We'll get you, of course, more on what's the current situation, because we understand that the soldiers are also trying to ensure that they locate the Maoists who attacked them in this manner in Sukhma. The images are also, of course, on your screens right now, but unfortunately, the incidents of these Naxal attacks in Sukhma and the Maoist-infested areas of Chhattisgarh continuing to pour in every few months. So this is, in fact, the news coming in right now. We will connect with my colleague Sumi to get you more details on exactly what's happened in Chhattisgarh. What we're hearing is that the 14 soldiers who've been injured are out of danger. All right, Jitendra Bahadur is joining us with more details on this. Jitendra, get us the latest on this incident. What happened?
देखिए, आज सीआरपीएफ के जवान जगरगुड़ा का जो जंगल है सुकमा में, वहां पर फॉरवर्ड ऑपरेटिंग बेस जो बनाया गया है वहां पर वो सारे जवान पहुंचे थे, कोबरा कमांडो भी उसमें मौजूद थे। उस दौरान जो घात लगा करके नक्सली हैं उनकी तरफ से हमला किया गया और उस हमले में सीआरपीएफ के जो 3 जवान हैं वो शहीद हो गए हैं। इसके साथ ही 14 सीआरपीएफ के कोबरा कमांडो के जवान हैं।
Tragic news there of 3 soldiers having lost their lives in that Naxal attack. We'll track the latest that comes in on that incident and what's really played out and what's the situation currently in Sukma. I'm slipping into a very, very short break here on 6 p.m. Prime. Coming up on the other side, we'll be getting you a horrific story of a 25-year-old Indian student being hammered to death by a homeless drug addict who he was helping. We'll tell you more about exactly what played out, and I know there are a lot of questions about whether Indian students are unsafe in America. We'll talk about that with experts.
Get ready for an immersive journey into the heart of news, politics, and insights that matter. Join India Today now on WhatsApp. Scan the QR code.
सीएम को इनवाइट किया है, हाँ इस इनवाइट किया है, इससे सीट शेयरिंग, इससे चुनाव का पर क्या असर होगा ये हमारे संगठन पर निर्भर करता है। ज़मीनी स्तर पर अभी भी कल हमारे कुछ पोस्टर निकाले गए, हमारे कार्यकर्ता नाखुश हैं, हमारे कार्यकर्ता नाराज हैं, पर ममता जी तो इंडिया गठबंधन का एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण हिस्सा है ना, तृणमूल कांग्रेस, और वो इंडिया गठबंधन उन्होंने कहा, दोहराया है कि मैं इंडिया गठबंधन से के हिस्सा होकर ही लड़ूंगी, मैं इंडिया गठबंधन को और मजबूत करूंगी।
आपस में झगड़ा कौन प्राइम मिनिस्टर होगा, कौन नेता होगा। नीतीश बाबू पहले नेतृत्व किया, फिर ममता बनर्जी ने कूदी। अब ममता जी देख लिए कि कुछ होने वाला नहीं, उन्होंने खड़गे जी का नाम बोल दिया। आप आपस में रह नहीं सकते हैं। खड़गे जी पहले तो ममता को पूछे क्यों राहुल गांधी को बंगाल में घुसने नहीं दे रहे हैं, क्यों उनको गो बैक बोला जा रहा है, ऐसे कैसे हो जाएगा। और एक एक नेता, ममता जी बोल रहे बंगाल में हमसे अलायंस नहीं करेंगे, अखिलेश बोलते हैं उत्तर प्रदेश में हम अलायंस नहीं करेंगे, केजरीवाल बोल रहे दिल्ली में पंजाब में हम कांग्रेस के साथ नहीं जाएंगे, तो फिर कहाँ अलायंस होगा।
Indian student hammered to death in US. Beaten to death by homeless man. Hit 50 times on head with the hammer. 2 Indian student deaths in America. Should parents be worried?
Lakhs of Indian students go to the United States to pursue their dreams, the perfect American dream as it's known. So many of us either have family there or know friends who have traveled to the United States to pursue their studies. But is the country becoming increasingly safe for Indian students? Are we seeing incidents of racist attacks, incidents like what we've seen right now of a 25-year-old student being hammered to death? There's no racial angle there, but there's still a serious question about crime rates in the United States affecting Indian students, affecting young Indians who travel to America hoping for a better life, a better lifestyle. The incident I'm talking about, which has shocked the country, shocked the world, It's of a 25-year-old student who just finished completing his MBA degree, was in fact in Georgia working part-time as a store clerk, which is very often what Indian students do to make ends meet. And as someone who was trying to help others, there was a homeless man outside who he gave shelter to in the store. It turned out that this homeless man was a drug addict and hammered 25-year-old Vivek Saini to death.
Two Indian students dead in America. Their dreams cut short brutally, and families back home left mourning. One of the students, Vivek Saini, was brutally murdered by a homeless drug addict, and what we are about to show you is not for the faint-hearted. This is how Vivek was killed, hammered to death by the homeless man identified as Julian Faulkner. The footage that's emerged from the convenience store where he was murdered, Vivek can be seen in a blue jacket with his back to Faulkner. The drug addict suddenly attacks him with a hammer, hits him on the head, and Vivek immediately collapses. The horror does not end there. Faulkner repeatedly attacks Vivek with a hammer, hitting his head again and again and again. After hitting him over 50 times, Vivek is motionless, and a pool of blood spreads on the floor of the store. The drug addict then walks away, and other customers, scared for their lives, move away from the monster. Faulkner then comes back to the lifeless body of Vivek and seemingly searches his pockets, perhaps in the hope of finding some cash to fund his drugs. The murder of 25-year-old Vivek Saini has shocked the world, particularly because Vivek was providing this homeless drug addict shelter and food and taking care of him. Soon after this horrific video came the news of another Indian student's death. The family of Neil Acharya, a student of Purdue University in Chicago, first took to social media to confirm that their son was missing and last known to have been dropped off by an Uber driver at his university campus. But soon the tragic news trickled in that young Neil's body was found in the college campus. And so far, no news has come in on the cause of the Indian student's death. Two Indian student deaths in America has sounded off alarm bells among Indian parents, scores of whom have sons and daughters currently studying in the United States. Bureau Report, India Today.
Truly mind-numbing footage that of how this young student's life was snuffed out. He'd come from Haryana all the way to pursue his dreams, was studying in the United States for the last 2 years and was planning to live in America for many more years. But unfortunately, his life snuffed out because of his act of kindness to this homeless drug addict. And that's a serious concern that we've seen in the United States as well. Of drug addiction, and because of that, crime rates going up. Add to the fact that you have also racist attacks taking place in America. I want to bring in now Geeta Mohan, a foreign affairs editor, for more on this. Geeta, what really has the investigation thrown up so far into the two deaths that have been reported of Vivek Saini and of Neil Acharya?
Well, the investigations are on. The Indian consulates have been in touch with family members. It is a very serious situation. In one case, the investigations are underway because the body of Neil Acharya was found, Akshita, but there are no details as to what really happened or transpired. But in the other case, we do know that the Indian national was hammered to death by an American a homeless person. So the man has not just been identified but also arrested. We'll again have to wait and see what the proceedings really look like. In the meanwhile, the consulate did get in touch with the family members, distraught family members who've learned of their children having been killed or dead in the United States of America. So a very serious situation. There are two cases, very, very different from each other. One where the Indian national was bludgeoned to death. The other where the investigations are still ongoing.
All right, Geeta, thanks for those details. But obviously, when you see these kind of incidents coming to light and you've got family or friends currently in the United States pursuing their studies, you tend to question how safe America really is. Is it really the perfect American dream as being projected by so many out there? Or is it mired in all of these issues of safety, of racist attacks, of homelessness and drug addiction, leading to crime rates going up in America, perhaps a lot more than in India? I want to bring in on this broadcast Jitin Chawla, who is a career counselor and, of course, also knows the ins and outs of how many such cases we see of Indian students with big dreams traveling to America. Jitin, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here on India Today. Lakhs of students, essentially, I'm sure on a yearly basis, and we have that data also on our screens, travel from India to the United States. It's one of those destinations that many go to sought after for education because it's believed to have a better future for students. These kind of incidents, however, will kind of lead to questions about whether that's really the case.
So increasingly as parents engage with us, and one is of course some like good number of students we send. Second is we are also working with a lot of top schools and we run career resource centers there. My teams are going and conducting programs even in Gulf where there are a lot of Indian schools. We work a lot with CBSE, ICSE and a few IB schools. So increasingly this is asked. In fact, when I talk about summer camps to Indian parents, everyone talks about Singapore as a first location, because everyone feels and there's a perception that Singapore is absolutely safe and my child can go even at a younger age. When it comes to US, we see two different kind of perspectives. One, on one side, there are parents who are like, they have the top universities, so we want to gun for Ivy League or topmost university in the world. And second, there are people who are still toying with the idea and trying to see whether my child will adjust there, whether my child will get a job there, or even issues of PR, So 1 year back, I could have talked about Canada, Australia, and now increasingly Finland as countries where people can get PR comparatively easy. But right now, I mean, this is very sad what has happened, and I'm sure this will shake up a lot of parents into thinking NU on US. There are reasons for it. We need to understand. But yeah, on one side, there are, I would say, there are cities which are considered to be safe cities. There are cities which are considered to be tough cities.
But that's the problem really, Jitin. What happens inevitably with Indian students is they apply to a handful of universities. If they don't get into the top, they get into lesser known universities, but still take that chance believing that, moving to America means that their life essentially gets better, that they progress. Having said that, but in these lesser known universities, in these towns and cities, is it really safe for students? Would you advise that, if it's towns and cities where you don't have a large Indian population or which is not very popular, not very, famous for having a lot of international diaspora, would you advise them against taking it up?
Not in entirety, because see, somehow, of course, I mean, we have seen numbers. Thankfully, like we send a lot of students, but I have not encountered any major issue. There have been small cases, but not so many major issues. Even if you look at cities like Minnesota, if I look at Midwest. So a lot of students have gone and life is cool, and even where there is a significant American population, I have not seen too much of this thing. But yeah, in the recent times, generally in US, like gun violence, mass killings have increased.
Exactly.
So if you go back 5 years back, 10 years back, and now, so there is change. So yeah, accordingly, we'll also need to change. If I look at bigger cities, the support system may not be there. In fact, I'll have to look somewhere in between. Like Minnesota is a wonderful city with maybe the Twin Cities having more than a lakh of Indian population, and hence you have Indian stores, you have a system, you have temples, you have Indians regularly meeting each other. So we always advise our students that whenever you are going, get into the Indian diaspora, be active there, be active with whatever festivities are happening, so that
Correct.
you know the people, and then you can.
Yeah, Jitin, my final question to you is, what do universities do? Do they really do anything, these American universities, to ensure safety of students, not just the Indian diaspora, but international students who come in, without any family or friends, who step foot for the first time in the country? Is there any system that's put in place to ensure their safety, to ensure that there is an adequate redressal system?
Generally, they have counseling centers. So yeah, mental health. There would be a regular workshop which would be happening. Second point is typically students in the initial few days. So there's a orientation happening, and people are getting to know the campus. You are readily, formally and informally, you mix up with seniors. So I would say, yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll say if I'm going to a decent, good university, maybe it's 7, 8 is what I'll give to them. But definitely this thing is happening. But there would be universities where probably not so much is happening. And as you rightly said, maybe if I'm looking at universities which are in very far-flung area where maybe people are not that much oriented, or there are some cities where there's an aggressive culture, like Texas has a reputation for a lot of aggression.
Correct, and gun violence,
Yeah. So there it might be, it may not be there, but generally yes, I think universities do take care. Good universities have systems in place.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks very much, Jitin, for joining us. But I also want to put out another perspective here. For all parents watching this, I'm sure you're wondering whether there's enough of measures in place that if someone is aggrieved, what really do they do? If you have a son or a daughter studying in the United States who's facing an issue here in India, perhaps you can go to the courts. Can you do the same thing in America? I want to bring in Nalini also on this broadcast, who's our legal editor. Nalini, what really is the system that's in place for Indian students there? Can they approach the US courts, or is it more directed towards the MEA and going along that route?
Akshita, there are two main things that need to be taken into consideration when you are not a US citizen and a victim of a crime on the US soils. One is the nationality of the perpetrator, and the second is the nationality of the victim. More importantly, the nationality of the perpetrator. And the reason why I say that is because the US Constitution says that every person who is there on US soil legally, irrespective of what their nationality is, will be given equal protection under the laws, which means protection of their life, liberty, and safety, which is in line with Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which also says that every person who's on Indian soil, the responsibility of protecting their life and liberty is there on the local law enforcement authorities. So keeping that in mind, the prosecution and the investigation of this entire case, or any criminal case that happens with Indian citizens on US soil, the responsibility of that is on the local law enforcement. But at the same time, the rights of the Indian citizens who have been victims of this crime are on the same page as the rights of the US citizen, because it's the responsibility of the local authority to ensure that their life and liberty is protected, even if it's not a crime as severe as murder, even if it's a crime of discrimination or theft. In those cases, it is the responsibility of the local law enforcement to not only duly investigate that crime, but also prosecute that crime in the courts in the US to ensure that the victim, irrespective of where he comes from, gets justice in the case. The second thing is that in case the perpetrator is the state itself, for example, multiple times we see cases where there is a case of discrimination, where there are police officers who are discriminating against people on the basis of their race. In case the perpetrator is the state itself, then of course the Indian citizens on the soil have the right to go to court against the state, either in a civil action or in a criminal action, and seek some sort of compensation on the fact that they have been discriminated. So there are various remedies available. In fact, even the Indian embassies and the Indian authorities who are there on ground in the US have several helplines for any Indian citizens who might need any emergency requirement or emergency help. So there are several legal remedies available with regard to this. And there are several options available with several lawyers who also specifically help immigrant citizens who are caught in such instances abroad.
Okay, interesting perspective that Nalini has also given us. Nalini, just one quick follow-up also on that. The other issue is the lack of awareness of the kind of legal options that Indians really have in the United States. And is that really a problem that you see on the ground, that Indians very often don't know the legal options that they can exercise and thereby lose out?
Well, in fact, Akshita, it's not just lack of awareness, and not just within Indians, but within a lot of immigrants, there is always a hesitancy to report crimes, especially when they are abroad or when they're in the US, essentially because they feel like even if they're victims of a crime and they report it, then there might be some sort of an action taken against them. They might be deported, or they might get embroiled in some sort of a legal tussle that they might not originally want to be a part of. It might backfire, essentially. So keeping this in mind, there is a lot of hesitancy. The kind of crimes that are being reported by immigrants, even in the US, despite the fact that they're there legally, is in fact extremely low due to these reasons. So there are a lot of awareness programs that even the US authorities have carried out. In fact, I was just going through their website a little while earlier, and they've spoken extensively about how they encourage any victim of a crime who is there present legally to come and report the crime if in case the perpetrator is a US citizen. If the perpetrator in such cases is not a US citizen, Akshita, then it becomes a little bit complicated because it is the country where he is originally from, the country where he's a citizen, is the country that will be in the authority to take an action against him and to try him according to their local laws. So the essence of the entire issue becomes which laws will be applicable in these cases. So it is important that all of the Indian citizens who are in the US and anywhere abroad know that if they have been a victim to a crime, they should in fact proactively come out and report it, because the authorities
so the law there in America does apply in these kind of cases. Thanks very much, Nalini. That was in fact very, very insightful information that you have given us, and one that will help so many parents, families who right now looking at what's happened to 25-year-old Vivek Saini must be feeling extremely unsure of really what's happening in America. 2 incidents of Indian students dying in America in a matter of 48 hours. And obviously, it set off alarm bells for parents. We hope that the information that we've given you also helps you in the course of ensuring that you're more aware of what rights you have if you're someone residing in the United States or have a loved one there. But that's all we have time for on this broadcast. Thanks very much for tuning in.
देखिए, जब जब सत्ता का परिवर्तन उन्हें करना होता है,